Snowflakes drifted through the quiet December night, landing softly on the Parker family's front porch. Inside, warm light spilled across the living room as Emma Parker moved quickly, arranging ribbons, lighting candles, and setting the last touches for the family Christmas party. She wanted everything to be perfect. This was the first big gathering since she and her husband, Mark, had expanded their business. Their event planning company had done well that year, and Emma believed this Christmas would be a celebration of both family and success. She stepped back to admire the sparkling tree. Everything looked flawless, yet something felt off. Mark had been gone since morning, claiming he had an emergency meeting with a client. It wasn't unusual, but lately, these urgent meetings had become far too frequent. He had started working late, missing dinner, and answering calls only in the hallway. Whenever Emma entered the room, his tone changed, and the conversation ended abruptly. She'd asked him about it once, but he brushed it off with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. She tried to ignore the growing doubt. It was Christmas after all, time for joy, not suspicion. She told herself he was just tired. Still, as she tied the final bow on a wreath, a small ache sat heavy in her chest. The clock struck 8. Snow shimmered under the streetlight outside. Emma went to the window to close it, but something made her pause. Headlights flickered through the snow. A black car stopped at the end of their driveway. She leaned closer, curiosity turning into a strange unease. Mark stepped out. Relief washed over her for a brief moment, until she saw the woman stepping out behind him. The woman's bright red coat stood out against the white snow, her laugh clear and familiar. It took Emma a second to recognize the face, Sophie, her best friend. For a moment, Emma couldn't move. Sophie's laughter floated up to the window, light and teasing. Mark smiled at her, a smile Emma hadn't seen in months. The two walked toward the car trunk, bumping shoulders playfully. Emma's breath fogged the cold glass as she watched Mark open the trunk and hand Sophie a small wrapped box. Sophie leaned closer and whispered something. Mark chuckled, sliding an arm around her waist. Emma's heart pounded so hard she thought it might crack her ribs. She could barely hear what they said. But then one sentence came through the still night air, clear, sharp, unforgettable. "She still thinks I'm working late," Mark said, his tone dripping with amusement. Sophie's reply sliced through Emma like ice. "By the time she finds out, you'll already have everything." Emma's hand shot to her mouth to stop a gasp. Everything? What did they mean? Then she remembered the business, the contracts, the financial accounts, the meetings she had missed because Mark insisted on handling them himself. Emma had trusted him completely, signing papers he gave her without question. He said he was taking pressure off her shoulders. Now, dread filled the space where love used to live. Mark and Sophie shared a quick kiss before getting back into the car. Emma stumbled away from the window, her whole body trembling. The sound of her heartbeat drowned out the faint hum of the car driving off. She pressed her back against the wall, staring at the twinkling lights she had hung hours ago. Everything she'd built, the business, the marriage, the friendships, suddenly felt like a lie. Her mind raced through every memory, every moment she'd missed the warning signs. Sophie had always been close to them. She was there during late work nights, joined them for dinners, and offered advice whenever Emma felt overwhelmed. She had even helped design the company's new logo. Emma thought she was helping. Now it was clear she had been helping herself. Emma's phone buzzed. A message from Mark lit up the screen. "Running late again. Don't wait up. Love you?" She stared at the message, her hand shaking. The words "love you" felt like poison. She wanted to scream, but no sound came out. Instead, a single tear slid down her cheek. She turned off the phone and placed it face down on the table. The truth was too heavy to bear. She walked to the living room and sat on the couch, staring at the glittering ornaments. Every one of them carried a memory. One from their honeymoon, another from their first Christmas together, a star their daughter Lily had made before she passed away years ago. That loss had nearly broken them, and for a long time, Emma believed it had made them stronger. Now she realized it had only left her more vulnerable. Mark had promised her stability, loyalty, and a future built on trust. Instead, he'd replaced love with lies, and Sophie, the one person Emma confided in the most, had betrayed her deepest friendship. It wasn't just the affair. It was the deception, the planning, the calculated way they had built their betrayal in plain sight. The clock ticked past midnight. The house was silent except for the soft hum of the heater. Emma stood, wiping her tears. Something inside her shifted. Not rage exactly, but clarity. She looked around at the house she had worked for, the company she had created, and the name she had built through years of sleepless nights. If they thought they could take everything from her, they didn't know who she truly was. Emma walked into her home office and sat down at her desk. Files were scattered across the table, contracts, invoices, partnership documents. She began flipping through them, reading every line, every signature. The deeper she went, the clearer the betrayal became. Bank transfers, expense reports, all pointing to one thing. Mark and Sophie had already begun moving company funds to a new account, one registered under a name Emma didn't recognize. She leaned back in her chair, her hands trembling but her eyes steady. The evidence was there. Her company wasn't gone yet. But if she didn't act soon, it would be. Anger burned through the grief. She didn't throw things or cry again. Instead, her thoughts sharpened. Emma had spent years learning how to plan perfect events, anticipate problems, and control chaos. She realized she could use those same skills for something else, something that would make Mark and Sophie regret ever underestimating her. The snow outside grew heavier, blanketing the world in silence. Emma looked out the window again, her reflection faint against the dark glass. She no longer saw the woman who decorated houses and waited for her husband to come home. She saw someone different, someone calculating, focused and quietly dangerous. In that moment, her heartbreak hardened into resolve. She whispered to herself, "You wanted everything. Mark, let's see how much you can handle losing." She turned off the lights, leaving only the Christmas tree glowing behind her. Its lights flickered across her determined face. The night no longer felt festive. It felt like the beginning of something else. A battle fought not with words, but with precision and patience. By morning, Emma had a plan forming in her head. She would host the family Christmas party as usual, pretending everything was fine. She'd keep smiling, acting like nothing was wrong. She would invite their clients, friends, and business partners. It would be the perfect evening, the one where Mark and Sophie believed they had won, but they wouldn't see what was coming. Not until it was too late. Emma stood at the window one last time before going to bed. Snow glistened on the branches, peaceful and pure, like a world untouched by betrayal. She closed the curtains slowly, her heart steady, her mind clear. The pain hadn't gone away, but it had turned into purpose. For the first time that night, she allowed herself a small, bitter smile. Christmas, she decided, would still be a celebration. But this year, it wouldn't be about joy or love. It would be about truth. And when the lights came on, when the guests arrived, when Mark and Sophie thought they were celebrating success, Emma would be ready to reveal what betrayal truly costs. The snow kept falling. The candles flickered low. And in the stillness of that cold December night, Emma Parker began to plot the revenge that would change everything. Morning sunlight filtered through the curtains, but Emma barely noticed. She hadn't slept at all. The shock from the night before had turned into an icy determination. Her hands still trembled slightly as she poured herself coffee, but her mind was clear. Mark's betrayal had cut deep, yet she refused to let him win. He thought he could quietly take everything she built and walk away. He didn't realize Emma was done being quiet. When Mark came downstairs, dressed for work, his smile looked as fake as the words that followed. "You were up early," he said casually, kissing her on the cheek. Emma forced a smile. "Just finishing some things for the party." He nodded, completely unaware of what she knew. As he left, she stood at the window and watched him drive away. That same car, that same road, and probably the same woman waiting at the other end. She returned to her office, spreading out the documents she had found. It was all there, the business transfers, the client contracts he had rerouted, even false signatures in her name. The betrayal wasn't just personal anymore. It was financial, professional, complete. They were trying to erase her existence from her own company. Emma's first instinct was to go to the police or a lawyer, but she hesitated. Legal battles would take months, maybe years. She wanted justice now, and not just in court. She wanted them to see her strength, to feel the humiliation they had planned for her. So, she started planning. The Christmas party would be her weapon. She would make it grand, beautiful, and unforgettable. All their clients, business partners, and family friends would be there. It would look like a celebration, but in truth, it would be a trap. For the next 2 weeks, Emma worked nonstop. She coordinated decorations, arranged catering, and personally invited guests. Mark was thrilled, thinking it was all for him. "You're amazing," he told her one night. "You make everything perfect." She smiled softly, replying, "I try my best." Inside, she felt nothing but the cold satisfaction of knowing what was coming. Every time Sophie visited to help, Emma played along. She listened to Sophie's fake enthusiasm, her overdone compliments, her attempts to act like a loyal friend. Emma's patience became her armor. She even thanked Sophie for her help and handed her glasses of wine with a pleasant smile. But every time Sophie looked away, Emma's eyes hardened. At night, Emma studied. She learned exactly how to expose them. She gathered every email, document, and message linking Mark and Sophie's deceit. She even printed photos from their secret meetings, the ones she found in the company's shared folder, uploaded accidentally by Mark himself. He must have thought he was untouchable. Days passed quickly. Emma grew stronger, calmer. The pain was still there, but she carried it differently now. It was fuel. Finally, the night of the party arrived. The Parker home glowed with golden lights. Music played softly, and laughter filled the air. Guests poured in, business partners, investors, friends. Everyone praised the decorations and the warmth of the evening. Emma greeted each one with a smile that masked her storm. Mark moved around the room, shaking hands, laughing confidently. Sophie floated beside him, charming everyone. They looked like the perfect pair of successful partners. To everyone else, it was just another Christmas celebration. To Emma, it was the stage for truth. She waited patiently, moving through the crowd, chatting, laughing, making sure everything ran smoothly. The dinner was served. The atmosphere buzzed with joy. Even Mark couldn't stop smiling. "You've outdone yourself again," he whispered to her, raising his glass. Emma nodded. "This one will be unforgettable." After dessert, she walked to the center of the room, holding her wine glass. The chatter slowly faded. "Before we end the night," she began, her voice calm but firm, "I want to thank everyone for being here. This company has been a dream, built with love, trust, and partnership." Mark smiled proudly, unaware that his world was seconds from collapsing. Emma took a deep breath. "But sometimes," she continued, "trust is broken by the people closest to us. And tonight, I think the truth deserves to be seen." Gasps rippled through the crowd as the large screen behind her flickered on. Photos appeared, Mark and Sophie having dinner together, their hands intertwined. Then screenshots of emails, bank transfers, and signed documents. The evidence was undeniable. A murmur swept the room. Mark's smile vanished. Sophie went pale. "Emma, what is this?" Mark stammered. Emma faced him. "It's the truth. The one you both hid while smiling in my face. You wanted everything, Mark. The business, the money, my trust. But you forgot one thing. I pay attention," the guests whispered in shock. One of their major clients stepped forward, glaring at Mark. "You lied to all of us," he said coldly. Another turned to Sophie. "And you helped him." Mark reached out, panic in his eyes. "Emma, we can talk about this privately." She stepped back. "No, we're done talking in private. You built your lies in the dark. It's time everyone sees them in the light." Sophie's voice trembled. "It's not what it looks like," Emma cut her off. "It's exactly what it looks like." The room fell silent, except for the soft hum of the projector. Mark's face flushed red with anger and embarrassment. He turned toward the guests, trying to salvage his image. "She's exaggerating." Emma pressed another button on the remote, revealing a video clip of Mark and Sophie in the office after hours, discussing how to transfer the company assets under their names. Their own voices filled the room. "Once it's done," Sophie said in the clip, She'll never know what hit her. When the video ended, no one said a word. Mark's jaw tightened. "You invaded my privacy," he hissed. Emma met his gaze steadily. "You invaded my life." He stood frozen for a moment before storming out, Sophie trailing behind him, tears streaking down her face. The guests watched in stunned silence. Then someone started clapping. Another joined in. Soon the entire room echoed with applause, not for her revenge, but for her strength. Emma didn't smile. She didn't cry either. She simply stood there, heart pounding, hands steady. For the first time in weeks, she felt in control. The lies were over. The truth was out. When the last guest left, the house grew quiet again. The decorations still sparkled, the smell of cinnamon still lingered, but everything felt different. Emma sat by the fireplace, staring at the flames. She thought she'd feel relief, maybe victory. Instead, she felt empty. The party had ended, but her mind replayed every detail. Mark's shocked face, Sophie's trembling voice, the gasps of the crowd. She had exposed them completely, yet part of her wondered if it had truly made her free. Outside, snow fell softly, covering the world in white. Emma stood and walked to the window, the same window where she had first seen them together. This time there was no heartbreak, only exhaustion. She whispered to herself, "It's done." But deep down, she knew it wasn't over. Mark and Sophie were gone, but the scars they left wouldn't disappear overnight. She had revealed their lies, yet something in her still ached. Maybe it was because revenge didn't undo betrayal. It only made it visible. Still, Emma didn't regret what she did. They had taken her trust, and she had taken back her power. That was enough for now. As she turned off the lights, the reflection of the Christmas tree glowed faintly in the window. The night was quiet, peaceful and heavy with the cost of truth. Emma took one last look around the room. The guests were gone, but her resolve remained. She walked upstairs, whispering softly, "Merry Christmas. Mark, I hope you finally understand what you lost." Then she closed her door, ready to face whatever came next, not as a victim, but as a woman who refused to be broken. Morning came quietly after the storm of the Christmas party. The world outside was covered in thick snow, muffling every sound, but inside Emma Parker's house, silence felt heavy and sharp. She sat at the kitchen table, staring at a half-empty cup of coffee that had gone cold. The previous night played in her mind like a movie she couldn't stop. Mark's pale face, Sophie's shock, the whispers of guests as they realized everything had been a lie. It was over, at least publicly. Their betrayal was no longer hidden. Yet instead of joy, Emma felt an emptiness she hadn't expected. The house, once full of laughter, felt hollow. Decorations still hung from the walls. The scent of cinnamon and pine still lingered, but none of it brought warmth. She had imagined this moment for weeks, the moment they'd be exposed and humiliated. She thought it would heal her pain. But now the victory felt hollow. She had gotten her revenge, but the wound was still there, raw and deep. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number appeared. "You destroyed me. Are you happy now?" She didn't need to ask who it was. Mark. She stared at the message for a long moment, then set the phone down. No answer, no anger, just silence. For the next few days, the fallout spread quickly. News of the Christmas party had reached almost everyone in their business circle. Clients backed out of deals. Investors pulled funding. Mark's reputation crumbled overnight, and Sophie's business license was suspended after Emma handed over proof of their forged documents. Emma didn't gloat, but she didn't stop it either. She watched from the sidelines as everything they'd stolen fell apart. Yet every victory came with a strange ache. Revenge, she realized, had its own kind of loneliness. One afternoon, she received a call from an old partner, David Chen, who had once invested in her company. "I saw what happened," he said quietly. "You did what you had to do, but don't let it consume you. The company can survive, Emma. You can rebuild." His calm voice steadied her. For the first time in weeks, she felt like someone saw her not as the betrayed wife, but as the capable woman she had always been. After hanging up, she went into her office and stared at the mess of papers, Photos and notes she'd used to expose Mark and Sophie. They represented pain, deception, and sleepless nights. Without hesitation, she gathered them all, placed them in a box, and set it aside. It was time to stop living in the past. That evening, she walked through the house, taking down the decorations. Each ornament reminded her of a different life, the life before betrayal. She paused when she reached the old star on the tree, the one her late daughter Lily had made. Her fingers brushed over the glitter and glue marks. For a long time, she had thought losing Lily was the worst pain she'd ever face. But now, she realized that loss had also taught her something: how to survive. She whispered softly, "We survived before, Lily. We'll do it again." Days turned into weeks. Mark tried calling several times. At first, Emma ignored him. But one night, curiosity, or perhaps closure, made her answer. His voice was tired, broken. "Emma," he said quietly, "I just wanted to apologize. I lost everything. Sophie left. I don't even have the company anymore." Emma said nothing. The sound of his regret was strange, part satisfying, part sad. "I know you hate me," he continued, "but I never meant for it to go this far. I made mistakes." She finally spoke, her voice calm. "You didn't just make mistakes, Mark, you made choices, and those choices destroyed everything we built together." He sighed heavily. "I know, I wish I could undo it." "You can't," she replied simply. "But maybe you can learn from it." He hesitated before asking, "Can you forgive me?" Emma looked out the window at the falling snow, the same window where she'd first seen him with Sophie. For a long moment she said nothing. Forgiveness wasn't for him, it was for her. Holding on to anger had become exhausting. "Yes," she said finally. "I forgive you. But that doesn't mean I want you back." Mark didn't argue. "I understand," he whispered. "Thank you." Then the line went dead. Emma sat quietly, the silence almost peaceful this time. She expected to feel relief, but what she felt instead was clarity. Forgiveness didn't erase what happened, but it released her from carrying it any longer. The next morning, she made a decision. The company would be hers again, rebuilt from the ground up, but it would be different, smaller, personal, with people she could trust. She reached out to a few old colleagues who had stood by her through the chaos. One by one, they agreed to return. Within weeks, her home office buzzed with new energy. Designs, contracts, and event plans once again filled her desk. It felt right. Every so often, people still brought up the Christmas party. Some praised her for her strength. Others whispered about the scandal. But Emma no longer cared what they said. She had learned that peace didn't come from what others thought. It came from the choices she made for herself. Spring arrived slowly. The snow melted and sunlight warmed the house again. Emma started walking every morning, breathing in the fresh air, feeling lighter each day. The bitterness that once filled her chest began to fade, replaced by quiet confidence. One morning, she received an invitation, a new business gala hosted by a major client. The irony made her smile. Last time she attended such an event, she was the betrayed wife. This time she would attend as a survivor, a businesswoman who had faced ruin and rebuilt herself. That night, she stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her dress. Her reflection looked stronger, calmer. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. She just wanted to live without the shadow of revenge hanging over her. At the gala, familiar faces approached her. Some apologized for doubting her. Others praised her comeback. She accepted their words gracefully. But deep down, she knew the real victory wasn't in proving them wrong. It was in proving to herself that she could rise again. When the event ended, she stepped outside. The city lights shimmered against the night sky. For a moment, she thought of Mark and Sophie, not with anger but with acceptance. They had taken from her, but they had also taught her the most important lesson. No one could truly destroy her except herself. Months later, Christmas came again. Emma didn't plan a party this time. Instead, she spent the evening quietly at home with a few close friends and her sister. Laughter filled the room again. Real laughter, warm and unforced. As everyone left, Emma stood by the window with a cup of cocoa, watching the snow fall. She smiled faintly, remembering everything: the pain, the revenge, the forgiveness. The window no longer reminded her of betrayal. It reminded her of how far she had come. She whispered, "It's over." And this time, she meant it. The next morning, she placed a small star, the same one Lily made, at the top of the tree. It sparkled softly in the sunlight. Emma took a deep breath and felt peace settle inside her chest, gentle and quiet. For the first time in years, she wasn't waiting for someone to fix her world. She had done it herself. Her story wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming her life, her dignity, and her peace. Because in the end, Emma realized something powerful. Revenge can break others, but forgiveness rebuilds you. And as the snow continued to fall outside, she finally felt free.